time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanop.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
How much more relaxed would you be in business if you really understood where your cash was going, where it's coming from, and how much was gonna be there next week, not last week? Yeah, that's what we're gonna dive into today, understanding your cash flow, way more than accounting. And I have a very special guest with me to do it, Ken LaCroix. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having us.
So tell me this, what percentage of small business owners do you think have a cash flow forecast in their business?
I would say less than 20%.
That's kind of high. I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to say like 1%.
I didn't say it was a good one. It was a good one, but they have some sense.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, a lot of the companies that we talk to, they're just crossing that 7-figure mark, and then they're approaching the 8-figure mark as well. And that's where you kind of get to a point in the business where it's outside of all your control, right? You have to delegate things to other people. Cash is flowing quicker to different places. It's harder to manage. And that's where things start to fall apart. So tell me, in that range, what does it feel like for a business owner who doesn't have a really good handle on their cash and on their cash forecast?
I think as people sort of migrate through these goalposts or fence posts of success measured in sales, there's a bit of a contradiction, because they feel as though, and they should be congratulated for getting their sales to those levels and continuing to go. But a couple things happen. Number one, if you sell on credit, and many businesses do, especially a lot of entrepreneurs, more sales means more profits, but usually less cash, because you're selling on credit, you're selling on receivables. So the receivables go up, the cash balance doesn't. So that's the conundrum of, I have more sales, I have more profits, but I have no cash. Number two, it's the informal ways of running the business, which frankly are much better than financial statements when you're small and growing, and you can get a handle on things, because you can walk the warehouse floor and know exactly what your inventory is, much better than looking at an inventory report. And you can get a sense of your sales by taking a pulse of your customers or your sales process, number of calls coming in, whatever that looks like. But the moment you grow through these other larger sort of milestones for growing your business, you might have multiple warehouses. Well, that's almost impossible to walk those all the time. And you might have a sales team. You might have handed off some of those responsibilities to a VP of sales, or you might have, you can't keep that sort of gut level pulse that you used to have. So now it's time to get to the more formal, understand your numbers, look at your financials, talk to your accounting department or your CPA. And that can be very problematic, because by definition, the financial statements are a look at the past, not the current, and certainly not the future. So we feel like in those cases where you're between $1 million, 5 million, 10 million, you really need to know what's going to happen tomorrow, far more than you need to know what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to talk about the tomorrow and next week and next month, but I also want to go a little doomsday, like just for a second, and not to be like a woe is me here, but when companies do go through these growth phases and they become sales and revenue rich, but cash poor, essentially, because you're on credit, like you're saying, and your receivables aren't turning over fast enough. How have you seen companies actually go out of business by managing that way? I mean, do you have some sort of horror stories, if you will, of companies that just, they were growing exponentially, but their cash couldn't keep up with their receivables?
Right. So I'll borrow a phrase. How did you go bankrupt? Gradually, then suddenly. And so I think that applies to the cash flow conversation, because it's really success or failure by 1,000 cuts as you grow your business. So you don't have one customer, now you have 50 customers, 1,000 customers, 10,000 customers, and you're not selling one big giant project thing. You have a series of things you're selling. So it's much harder to keep on top of. And the unfortunate part of financial statement interpretation or people running their business, they don't understand operating leverage. They don't understand their fixed costs. They don't understand contribution margin, the things that matter. I need to sell my products for this amount in this volume to make enough gross profit to pay for my fixed expenses, my rent, interest on a loan, salaries for my people, the things that I cannot change in the short run. So it's the inability to meet those fixed costs that result in insolvency and in many cases bankruptcy or the closure of the business. So keeping an eye on those fixed costs by managing revenue and gross profit, again, in both a percentage margin and a gross dollar amount as well to cover those fixed costs is the mindset that keeps you from getting in that insolvent situation.
Yeah, I love it. And for those of you who think Ken was just speaking a different language, I would argue he was like a little bit. Like there's a lot of terms in there that the normal everyday small business owner has never heard of. And that's okay. We just need to be a little bit more financially literate. I haven't seen financial literacy on Duolingo, but I am convinced it's a foreign language for a lot of people, myself included. I'm no expert, but let's transition into looking ahead. This is uniquely the role of a CFO in a company. Most accountants, bookkeepers, CPAs are not going to provide this service unless they explicitly say they do. So I want to caution you on that. And Ken, you mentioned that too, that these people are looking at statements that are produced from things that already happened. That being said, what is something a small business owner in that 7-8 figure range, what are the things they need to look for in even hiring or consulting with a CFO? Because like I said, a lot of those things that you just said are foreign. So how am I supposed to know if I'm hiring someone who's competent, that's actually going to help me, or if I'm really just hiring another glorified bookkeeper?
Sure. So, there's a lot of people that talk about the CFO services. There's a lot of people that talk about some of these jargon terms that I threw out there. Accounting is a great place for CFOs to come from, but it's not the only place they can come from. A true CFO uses the accounting numbers along with a whole bunch of other things, both in, around, and outside the business to do their analysis. So what we're talking about here is finance, not accounting. And finance is still a lot of numbers, but they tend to be much more theoretical numbers. People are attracted to accounting. They're attracted to the CPA world because there's an answer. You can reconcile. I can reconcile a bank statement, and I know for sure that's how much money is in the bank account and on my financial statements. When I tell you what sales are going to be next Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't know that number. It's very, very different. So you have to have people that are comfortable in sort of the unknown, have people that are comfortable with the squishy numbers, comfortable with I'm close enough and let's move on.
Yeah, I've never met an accountant or a CPA that's comfortable being uncomfortable.
It's a completely different mindset. That's
Yeah.
all. It's asking them to be uncomfortable. And frankly, if you asked me to reconcile the bank account every month for the next 27 months, that wouldn't be comfortable for me. So it's really just, where do you find your skill set? Where do you find your strength? And I'm happy to reconcile the bank account once to know that the process is good, but please don't ask me to do it again. But there's all kinds of people that we work with, that we have on our staff even, that all they can do, they just can't wait to reconcile next month's bank statement. And we love them. We need them. That's absolutely needed in your business. But we take it from there, from a finance perspective.
Yeah. So then let's talk about what is taking it from there. So you have a 13-week cash forecast. I can only imagine that would be a game changer for most small businesses who are only used to looking in the past. So what does it look like to sort of go from wherever you are now, accounting, bookkeeping, tax, that sort of financial accounting, if you will, to then looking ahead? How does that change a business, and what's involved in that change?
So I think there's a number of things that are beneficial and a few things that are difficult about it. So let's touch on both. The first one is, it would be great to know in some way what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, and a couple weeks out. The pushback we get from business owners and their management teams is, what if I'm wrong? Well, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. If you don't forecast your sales or your expenses or your cash, then you're always wrong. You have no idea what that is. So we think a little bit of knowledge, even if it's not completely right, is better than no knowledge. That's sort of concept number one. Number two is sort of the 80-20 rule. People think that just because their Excel spreadsheet can calculate 27 decimals of accuracy, that they should be doing that. Just get it right to 80%. Just pick your biggest customers and when you think they might pay. Pick your biggest expenses like rent and payroll and a few other things, and when those might land. The rest, just put in an other column and make it 7%, 10%, 20% of your expenses, and don't worry about that. People get really caught up in the details of, well, I think the utility bill comes on Friday, but sometimes it comes on Monday. Which bucket, which week should I put that in? It doesn't matter. I want you to concentrate on when your customers are going to pay you according to your terms, when you think they're going to pay you according to their terms, and then measure exactly what happened so you can get better at forecasting.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about businesses they're established, they're making 7, 8 figures in revenue. You have past data to at least be able to predict with some level of accuracy. Now, this doesn't really work if a company goes from 0 to 5 million in sales in like 3 months. I
Right.
assume that becomes way more challenging.
Right.
Um, that being said, though, like what does a company need in place in order to even produce these reports? Is there Do you find when you go into companies that you're having to sort of reconcile is the wrong word, but I'll use it anyway. Reconcile the past accounting and make sure it's up to date. Make sure you're pulling the right data. What does that process look like?
So the number of businesses that we roll into that accept the fact that they get their financial statements 25, 50, 120 days late
Oh, it's
is
crazy.
just absolutely painful to me. We think that a financial statement that is 90% right 3 to 5 days after the close of the month is far superior to a financial statement that's 95 or 97% right 15 days later. And it never gets more than 97, 98, 99% accurate, even if you work at it for 120 days. So we think that you need to get your numbers quickly and see what they look like in general. Again, it's the 80-20 rule. What are the 5 things I need to know that happened last month? But when you move to this weekly cash flow approach, you're sort of outside of your financials. Now you're really just looking at your bank account. And so that's one of the advantages of the 13-week cash flow template that we talk about, because even if your accounting is not where it needs to be, which is a euphemism for screwed up, you can still go to your bank statement and get most of these numbers right from the bank feed. So it's an end run around accounting to help you while you get accounting better. The two go hand in hand, but don't wait until accounting is fixed to figure out where your cash flow is going to be in the next 9 weeks, 12 weeks. Don't do that. You need to know about it right now.
Yeah, that sounds all too familiar. I know for a lot of people. We have a client right now. It's like pulling teeth from their accounting team to get the reports. Um, they finally changed, but it was months and months of, oh, I don't have the March reports done, and it's June. It's like, what? What are you talking about? That's crazy. Um,
Well,
but
from
looking
their
at
perspective, to their credit, they're looking for perfection. So they need the guidance that
right,
says,
right,
we don't want perfection. Become uncomfortable. That's really the conversation that needs to be had. Five
yeah,
days, 5 days from the end of the month, those financials are extremely valuable. 120 days later, they're worthless.
yeah, I agree. And looking sort of at the world of AI and automation, I mean, how much of this can be automated? What are you doing in your company to get these numbers faster and then to work with the AI to sort of help you with these predictive models? Are you doing any of that, or do you have a forecast within your own company to start doing that?
Great topic. So, uh, you know, we often get asked to make better analysis, and we need better numbers. We need more granularity, but we can't add cost to the accounting department. That doesn't work. We can't add people or bodies or more process. So we use technology immediately to streamline things. We don't think there's any value to banging on a keyboard for any number in accounting. They're all digital at some level. So grab them digitally, move them through your accounting system digitally, and manage the numbers. Don't input the numbers. That's number one. The difference between a 400-line invoice or a one-line invoice, and if it's digital, it's the same cost, energy, time, result. But if I have people doing invoice entry manually, well, if they can enter one line item instead of 400 line items, that's a big difference in time. So that's really the mindset that needs to shift, is everything needs to be digital in some way, shape, or form. And you need to have tools inside your accounting system and processes to keep that information digital and use it digitally and pass it along to the next department, silo, process digitally. So that's number one. Number two, in smaller businesses, there's just not enough data for AI to help. It's really just it's really just looking back at the last year and looking back the last 90 days and doing just a little bit of analysis on that. Just looking for some seasonality, a little bit of trend. But we have those discussions all the time. There's just even at $100 million company, for the most part, it's still in a very tiny amount of information that the AI models are just not designed for yet. What'll happen next week, next month, next year? I don't know. We look at that every single day. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some model, engine, algorithm, app, some person, some team somewhere that's going to make that a game changer, but we haven't seen it yet. But I'll be looking today and tomorrow to see if that happens.
That's actually interesting. So I've seen advertisements for like QuickBooks and other software, other accounting softwares where they're integrating AI. What is it that they're pulling then? Are they just kind of summarizing things, or if you're saying there's not enough data for the model, what are those models then doing?
Well, one quick trick that people often do is take their financial statements and roll it through an AI model, and it'll do things like say sales were up by 5% and expenses were up by 3%. That's AI, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we do as well. What we look for is because, or as a result, or this is what we're going to do. And there's just not enough data in any of those systems to give you a reliable answer. It might say, to increase sales, put more effort into the sales department.
No way. Brilliant.
Yep, believe it or not, that's a universal thing that really does work. So we sort of, people like us, and I'm being a little facetious, obviously, but folks like us that interpret these things, we're here to say not what should be done. We're here to answer what should be done for my business, where we are right now with the resources we have. And AI just doesn't know enough about you and your business to make that judgment yet. Again, I'm hoping I'm proved wrong tomorrow and we can roll this stuff out to everybody. And I know there are people working on this sort of thing, but as of today, we haven't seen that yet. But it's still early in the day. We'll see what happens at the end of the day. Things are moving so fast, Brandon, so fast. So we keep an eye on that every single day, so our clients don't have to worry about that part of it.
Yeah. So AI is basically like a really smart fifth grader at this point.
It is. But a fifth grader with an Encyclopedia Britannica is pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah.
It's
No, absolutely.
Just not knowledgeable about what to do 10 feet in front of them.
Yeah. And we will get there. What has to be in place first is that AI needs to be integrated in all parts of your business. So it can answer the because, right? So if it knows what your whole sales team is doing, and then it can start to recognize the patterns of, oh, okay, we made 50 outbound calls a day, which resulted in X after 3 months. And then we moved to 12 calls a day. It can sort of predict the results, but we don't have it integrated to that extent yet. So it really can't answer those questions. It can just give you the past data, like you said. So I agree. I think it's evolving. It's interesting. That's why I ask, because I know a lot of people are putting time and effort into it. But the way I see it, at least, is that you need to be integrating it now with the expectation that it's probably not going to produce those results for maybe 6 to 12 months at the earliest. So it's not a bad idea, but it's just not a right now thing.
Well, you touch upon a very important topic. The right now part is start collecting that data. Start recording every single one of those phone calls. Start recording the result of those things. It's a little bit of Big Brother, but if you can somehow record everything that's happening in your business in some way, shape, or form digitally, then that starts to become valuable. It's just there's usually a gap. You might record the sales call, but there's nothing tying that sales call to a purchase order or a sales order 3 weeks later, or an increase in orders 6 months later. That's really the hard part of tying the systems together, is finding any given action in your company and tying it to another action or another outcome somewhere else. That's really where it falls short. But by all means, start playing around with AI on everything you possibly can right now, for sure. Great point, Brandon.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like you said, somebody is working on exactly that, tying it together. So not to go down the AI rabbit hole, but this was a great episode. I think it's so important for people to make that shift from reactive to proactive, from looking at past statements to trying to predict the future with that 80 to 90% accuracy. You'll run your business a whole lot better. You'll sleep better at night. I guarantee it. I'm sure you've seen that as well. So thank you so much for stopping by. If someone does want to reach out, talk to you, maybe make that shift in their own business, where's the best place for them to go?
Our website, insightfulpartners.com. We've got a couple of different tools you could download there. That we have a cash flow template for you to try. Hop on a call with us. We're happy to chat with anybody for 15 minutes about any KPI, any issue in your business, anything that's going on. More than happy to chat with you.
Is it possible to break that cash flow template? Like if it turns bright red, is that a bad thing, Ken?
Give us a call.
Please call now. That's what's going to pop up with say. I love it. Ken, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Brandon.
Wherever you're watching and listening, insightfulpartners.com. It's on the screen. It's down below in the show notes. Go check that out. And think about this episode. Do you have this sort of financial control and predictability in your business? If not, if your business is growing, you're in that 7 and 8 figure range, it's probably about time. So go reach out to Ken. Go to the website. I appreciate you being here. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch.
Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch in the books. I hope this episode made you think and you grabbed some actionable ideas to propel your business. Don't forget to like, comment your takeaways, and subscribe wherever you're listening so we can help more entrepreneurs just like you achieve harmony in their life and business. For cutting-edge tools that bring clarity to your people and processes, check out humanoff.com to download our app today. See you next time.